There are moments in baseball that don't just live in the box score. They live in the air. In the silence that follows an explosion of sound. In the expression on a pitcher's face as he watches a ball disappear over the wall and realizes, not for the first time, and certainly not for the last, that he has just become part of a story he didn't write and cannot control. Chicago Cubs pitcher Milner had that moment. And what he said immediately after, standing on the mound, glove at his side, the roar of Dodger Stadium still echoing off every surface of that iconic ballpark, is now making headlines across the baseball world. Not because it was angry. Not because it was disrespectful. But because it was honest in a way that very few professional athletes allow themselves to be in the heat of competition. But before we get to those words, we need to talk about what happened in that at-bat. Because Shohei Ohtani's sixth home run of the season didn't arrive the way most home runs do. It arrived after a change. A decision. A small but deeply meaningful adjustment that Ohtani made between appearances at the plate, and that adjustment, once you understand what it means and why he made it, reveals everything about what separates him from every other player in the sport today. 3 hits. 1 solo home run. 1 changed bat. And 1 comment from a pitcher that the baseball world cannot stop talking about. There is something that happens at Dodger Stadium when Shohei Ohtani steps into the batter's box that doesn't happen for any other player in Major League Baseball. The crowd doesn't just get louder. It gets sharper. More focused. Tens of thousands of people who moments ago were checking their phones, talking to the person beside them, or watching the scoreboard suddenly redirect every unit of their attention to one place. 1 man. 1 at-bat. It is a phenomenon that television cameras capture but cannot fully convey. You have to be inside that stadium, feeling the collective shift in energy, sensing the anticipation move through the crowd like a current, to truly understand what Ohtani's presence does to a ballpark. On the night that Milner's comment became front-page news, that phenomenon was operating at full intensity. The Dodgers and the Cubs were locked in the kind of game that rewards patience from the fans willing to stay with every pitch. Milner had been working well. His command was sharp. His pitch sequencing had been thoughtful and effective through the early innings. By every measure of pitching performance, he was having a good night. And then Ohtani came to the plate. The first thing the cameras caught was the bat. Not the same bat Ohtani had been using earlier in the game. A different one. Subtle to the casual observer. Significant to anyone who follows Ohtani closely enough to understand that he does nothing without intention, that every choice he makes, from the food on his plate to the equipment in his hands, has been thought through in advance and serves a specific, calculated purpose. That bat change was the first signal that something was different about this at-bat. To understand why Ohtani's mid-game bat change matters, you have to understand his relationship with preparation. Most players make in-game adjustments reactively. They feel something isn't working, they consult a hitting coach, they try something different and hope the results follow. The process is instinctive, emotional, born from the rhythm of the game as it unfolds around them. Ohtani's adjustments don't work that way. People who have studied his approach to hitting, coaches, analysts, teammates who have watched him work through his pre-game routine, describe a player who has already anticipated most scenarios before the first pitch of the game is ever thrown. He has studied the pitcher's tendencies at different counts, in different game situations, against left-handed and right-handed batters. He has mapped out mentally which pitch is most likely to arrive in which location given the score, the inning, and the defensive positioning behind the pitcher. The bat change, in this context, was not a reaction to failure. Ohtani had already recorded hits earlier in the game. He was not struggling. He was not searching. He was targeting. Sources familiar with his preparation process describe a specific philosophy behind equipment choices that goes beyond weight and length. The feel of the bat at the moment of contact, the feedback it provides through the hands and up through the arms, tells Ohtani something about what adjustments his swing needs to make in real time. Different bats provide different information. And on this night, with Milner on the mound in a specific game situation, Ohtani decided he needed different information than the bat he had been using was providing. That decision, made quietly in the dugout between at-bats while the crowd buzzed around him, set the stage for what came next. Milner knew what he was facing. Any pitcher in Major League Baseball who steps onto the mound with Ohtani standing in the left-handed batter's box knows they are in a situation that will test every tool in their arsenal. There is no easy pitch to Shohei Ohtani. There is no location that is automatically safe. There is no sequence that he hasn't seen, studied, and prepared a response to. What Milner tried to do was work the edges. Keep the ball away. Use his movement to generate weak contact on pitches that broke late and forced Ohtani to reach across the zone. It was a sound approach. It was the kind of approach that works against the vast majority of major league hitters. The first pitch produced a foul ball. Ohtani was not fooled. He made contact, but the timing was slightly off. Milner had won that exchange. The second pitch was a ball, just outside. Milner was testing the boundary, seeing how Ohtani's eyes were tracking, gathering information of his own. The third pitch was where the at-bat changed. Milner went back to the same general area, trying to recreate the success of the first pitch, looking for another foul or a swing and miss. But Ohtani had recalibrated. Whatever feedback the new bat was providing him, combined with his read of Milner's pattern after two pitches, had given him exactly the information he needed. The swing was not a guess. It was not a happy accident born from a powerful athlete making contact with a well-thrown baseball. It was the execution of a decision that had already been made, in the preparation room, in the dugout, in the precise mental calculation that Ohtani performs between pitches while the rest of the world sees only a man standing in a batter's box waiting for the next delivery. The ball left the bat with the sound that every baseball fan recognizes immediately. Not the sharp crack of a line drive. The deep, full explosion of contact made perfectly, barrel to ball at exactly the right angle, with exactly the right force, at exactly the right point in the swing arc. Milner turned. He watched it go. The left field seats at Dodger Stadium erupted. Shohei Ohtani's sixth home run of the season was gone before most people in the ballpark had fully processed that it was hit. What Milner said as he stood on the mound in the immediate aftermath has been reported by multiple outlets and confirmed by those present in the stadium that night. He didn't curse. He didn't slam his glove. He didn't look toward the dugout with the expression of a pitcher asking to be pulled from the game. He simply said, quietly, to no one in particular, in the way that athletes sometimes speak to themselves in moments of pure, unfiltered honesty, that he had made the right pitch. 3 words that carry enormous weight when you understand their context. Milner was not making excuses. He was not deflecting responsibility for giving up the home run. He was stating, with the calm clarity of a professional who has spent years developing his craft, that he had executed his plan correctly, and that Shohei Ohtani had beaten his best pitch anyway. That is a different kind of admission than what the baseball world typically hears after a home run. Most pitchers, in the immediate aftermath of giving up a big hit, will identify something they did wrong. A pitch that missed its location. A sequence that tipped off the hitter. A mechanical flaw in the delivery that robbed the pitch of its intended movement. Milner's comment contained none of that. It contained something rarer and more unsettling for the competitive ego of a professional athlete, the acknowledgement that the outcome was not a product of his failure. It was a product of Ohtani's extraordinary ability to make the right decision faster, more accurately, and more consistently than the pitcher trying to get him out. When those words were reported, first by a beat writer covering the game, then picked up by national outlets, then spreading through baseball social media with the velocity that only truly revealing moments achieve, the reaction was immediate. Former pitchers who have faced Ohtani recognized exactly what Milner was describing. The feeling of executing a pitch correctly and watching it travel over the fence anyway is one that a growing number of major league pitchers have experienced. And most of them, if pressed, would say something very similar to what Milner said on that mound. Current players reacted with a mix of respect for Milner's honesty and the particular discomfort that comes from hearing a colleague articulate something they all privately feel but rarely say out loud. And fans, particularly those who follow the technical side of the game closely enough to understand the difference between a pitcher making a mistake and a pitcher being beaten by something beyond their control, responded with the kind of engagement that turns a single comment into a headline that lasts for days. Ohtani's home run was the centerpiece of the evening. But it was not the only thing that happened. 3 hits in total. Each one representing a different dimension of what makes Ohtani's offensive production so consistently devastating to opposing pitching staffs. The hits that bookend the home run were not products of power. They were products of pitch recognition, the ability to identify what a baseball is going to do before it arrives in the hitting zone, and to make the mechanical adjustment necessary to drive it where the defense is not. These are skills that players spend entire careers developing and that most of them never fully master. Ohtani operates with all of them simultaneously. In the same game. Against the same pitching staff that has had an entire series to study his tendencies and develop a strategic approach to getting him out. The bat change that preceded the home run was, in retrospect, the signature detail of the evening. It encapsulated in one simple, quiet action everything that separates Ohtani's preparation and in-game intelligence from what even very good major league hitters bring to the plate. He noticed something. He made a decision. He executed. 3 hits. 1 home run. Dodger Stadium in a frenzy. And a pitcher standing on the mound afterward, telling the honest truth about what just happened to him. There is a version of this story that focuses only on the numbers. The home run. The hit count. The season total climbing toward whatever record it is currently threatening. But the version of this story worth telling, the one that will still matter when the season is over and the statistics have been filed away, is about what Milner's comment reveals. It reveals that Ohtani is operating at a level where even correct execution by a skilled professional is not sufficient to guarantee a successful outcome. That is not a commentary on Milner's ability. He is a major league pitcher. He earned his place on that mound. His approach to the at-bat was sound, his execution was genuine, and his assessment of his own performance was accurate. It is a commentary on Ohtani. When you reach a level where your opponents can do everything right and still watch the ball land in the seats, you have moved beyond the category of great player into something that the sport's history has very few examples of. The names associated with that category are ones that every baseball fan knows without being prompted, players whose presence on a roster changed the way opposing teams prepared, the way managers made decisions, the way the entire strategic landscape of a game shifted the moment they stepped into the batter's box. Ohtani belongs in that conversation. Not as a future candidate. As a present reality. Milner's comment, made quietly on a mound in Los Angeles after a home run that sent Dodger Stadium into a frenzy, is now being discussed in front offices, broadcast booths, and dugouts across Major League Baseball. Because every pitcher who hears it thinks the same thing. That could be me tomorrow night. And the only answer they have, the only honest answer that anyone in the sport has, is to prepare better, execute cleaner, and hope that on that particular night, in that particular at-bat, Shohei Ohtani's extraordinary ability to turn preparation into results works against them slightly less efficiently than it did against Milner. It is not a comforting answer. But it is the truth. And in baseball, the truth has a way of making headlines whether you want it to or not. Milner already knows that. The rest of the league is taking notes.